All right, Chris says we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Taproom Live. This is the weekly show or one of the brands, Victory Southern Tier, Sixpoint this week or Bold Rock, brings you some really fun Thursday content and of course, beer. I'm Max. You probably haven't met me yet if you've been watching Taproom Live. I head up the Sixpoint marketing efforts. I've been there for the last 4.5 years roughly behind the scenes. And I'm joined by Max Finance, who you should know very well, and Adam Teeter, our special guest today. He's the CEO and co-founder of Vinepair, which is the largest beer, wine, and spirits publication. Adam, you want to introduce yourself a little and talk a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So I started Vinepair with Josh about 6 years ago now. And we basically started it with a desire to create a publication that was speaking to our generation and that looked at the entire world of drinks. So it was more than just a beer specific publication or more than just a spirit specific publication, but really was looking at what we all consume every day. Because I think as lovers of delicious liquids, we right? So like there's some nights that I want a really good cocktail. There's other nights that I want a delicious wine or a really good beer. So we wanted to create a publication that looked at all three and then that really saw how those three were reflected in the culture. So your tagline is beer is culture. Our tagline's always been drinking is culture. So very similar. And the idea that we look at the world through the lens of the glass. So we examine politics, we examine business, we examine the arts, all through the lens of its expression through the glass of wine, beer, spirits. So started 6 years ago, literally from Josh's apartment. Now we're oddly back in our apartment, so it kind of feels weirdly full circle.
No way, that's an apartment?
Yeah. I'm not in a library. But yeah, so we started it in his apartment and then, grew it from, one co-working space to our first real office to now our second, amazing office that we were really excited to be in and now we're not, which is rough. But with a really amazing team of people who help us cover this awesome world of beverage.
Awesome. So you said you wanted to cover your favorite delicious liquids. Which favorite delicious liquid is in your hand right now?
So right now I'm drinking Meltdown, which is a really awesome New England style IPA that you sent me, so thank you.
Yeah, no way. How convenient.
I know, how convenient. But I dug Meltdown since I first tried it. It's an awesome beer. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. And then I have another one on the side that I may pull out later, a different Sixpoint. But we'll see how, we'll just see where the night takes us. Like, I don't know.
You always stay stocked with Sixpoint, right? That's just...
Totally. I mean, I was saying my grocery store around the corner, I live in Fort Greene, is more well-stocked than Sixpoint than I would say any other. So you guys do a good job. So I'd say it's more well-stocked than Sixpoint than any other like New York City craft beer.
If any of our sales team is on or Union Beer, thank you all. That's Clint Hill, by the way. Max, what are you drinking?
Adam clearly has great taste because I'm drinking Meltdown as well. So also out of a glass, but it started in this can.
I'm drinking something special and new that the brewery shipped me 2 days ago, and this is the first time I'm trying it. And because I have this silly background, I can't actually show it to you. So I can try to show it to you. It's probably not going to work. So here's what it would look like on the camera. There you go, in and out. So here's what it actually is now on my screen. This is Cosmic Handshake. It's a new sour IPA in our Giant Loop Specialty Series, 9% ABV, and brewed in collaboration with Victory Brewing. This is my first time trying it, and I have to say I'm very happy with it. So the two things I have to drink are 9% and then this giant new 16-ounce resin. So I will be with you for most of the stream, and then I won't be here.
Yeah, you'll be somewhere.
Yeah, we'll be somewhere. Yeah. So I posted on the wall from the Sixpoint account, and people were able to ask questions before. So I just want to start off with a few of those questions.
And just before you start that, Max, just before you start that, all of you guys at home, please let us know what you guys are drinking from home too. We're always curious what you guys are drinking while you're tuning in. And as always, if you have more questions you want us to answer as we go along, throw those in the chat as well, and we'll try and get to as many as we can.
Definitely, yeah. Adam's going to talk a lot about different trends and stuff that they're seeing, and we want to know if you guys like them, hate them, agree with him. So sorry, Adam.
He hate me, but either way.
No, not you. Just the things you're saying. So the first question, this one's from Morgan. It's a beer question. She wants to know, are you wearing pants?
To me,
All of us.
I
You.
I am.
I am too, but they're sweatpants I put on just for this, and they say Sixpoint. Branded head to toe, literally. The second question has to do with this picture that I'm about to show. So this was on the promotion for this, and Marissa asked the question: is the shirt bonobos?
It is not.
It is not.
It is
And
not.
I've confirmed that the shirt Adam is wearing right now is not the same shirt as the picture.
I clearly, weirdly don't have a lot of plaid, but must look like I love plaid. That I think is probably J. Crew RIP.
All right.
RIP J. Crew.
All right. Now we can move on to the actual questions. What kind of mask are you wearing? No, I'm kidding. All right. So I want to go back to some of what you're saying when you founded Vinepair. You were talking about sort of how you arrived at the concept, but you could have started a media publication about anything. Why alcohol specifically?
So that's a good question. Besides the fact that I enjoy it, I really fell in love with sort of the world of alcohol through beer. So when I was in college, I started working the line with Josh. So Josh and I were college roommates, and we started working the line at Sweetwater. So like this one, Sweetwater was like nothing. So like I have a lot of Sweetwater glasses. Obviously didn't pour because we used to get them for free. So we started working the line at Sweetwater, and I started, underage, which they didn't care about at the time. So I got into beer through them. And started realizing how amazing craft beer could be. Because, this was early days. I mean, they were just really starting. They had just moved from their small facility by the airport to the facilities that they're still at now, but they've expanded like crazy. And so I was like, wow, this isn't just the stuff we're drinking at, house parties. This is like actually has lots of flavor. And I fell in love with their first one, Sweet Georgia Brown, and then started drinking their IPA and 420 and all these other like amazing beers, and even their blueberry beer, which now I don't have as much of a taste for, but at the time it just felt really weird. It's like, oh my God, they make a blueberry beer. Like who does that? And so that was sort of my entrance into the world of drinks. And then I moved to New York and got really into wine as well and trying to learn as much about it as I could. And Josh and I were sort of looking at the landscape and saying like, we really love this stuff, but are we reading anything about it as voraciously as we're sitting at home and reading like at the time Teeter, which had just launched, and Grub Street and stuff like that. And we weren't. And so our question to each other was like, why is that? So I had a journalism background. Josh had a writing background and a tech background. And we were saying like, oh, it's because like we don't want to read anything. Like just the coverage is like super in the weeds. It seems really esoteric. It's really for like hyper geeks, or some people might call you those types of people snobs. And it wasn't for us. And so we were like, well, why don't we try to start a publication that's in the drink space that feels a lot like Teeter would feel, but covering the world of drinks. And, we talked to a bunch of people who were like, you guys are crazy. Like there's not that many people that want to read about drinks in that way. Like that's why there's only these kind of publications you guys don't read. And we're like, well, we're going to try it anyways. And so we started it ourselves, like I said, and the audience just grew and grew and grew and then just snowballed. And we found like that population of people that we knew was always there. It's that group of people that loves to connect with cultures and people, et cetera, over beverage, and always has, and sees that as their entrance into food and their entrance into entertaining and, all these other amazing things. When you look at what's happening right now in social distancing and like the idea of the Zoom happy hour is massive because we use liquid to connect with each other.
You're technically on one right now.
Exactly. So like that, I think to us was always there, but prior we felt like all that really existed was like sites that either rated a product, right, and said like good or bad, like, or talked about the really, really, really tiny minutia of each thing and how it was produced. And like, while we think that's cool too, and we'll get into it with certain producers that we love, we want to instead talk about like the people behind all of it. We want to understand the marketing that went into it, the design that goes into your cans, like all that stuff is really important to us and we find super fascinating. Because we also believe that like everyone should drink what they like. So we don't want to be this like voice of God that says like, this brewery bad, this brewery good, this beer bad, this beer good. Like that's not us. Like if you have a beer that you love, that's awesome. Like there's a lot of beers that beer geeks might shit on me for loving, but I don't care, right? Like I still really love High Life.
Right, well, accessibility. Well, everyone likes more. Accessibility, as well as good taste, right?
Exactly. So that's what it's always been about. And then, you know, how do we then tell the stories behind all those products and behind the places and the people that make them?
You mentioned social distancing, so just jumping right into that. Have you seen what content people are consuming change since social distancing started? Is it leaning more towards spirits, more towards high alcohol? Is it leaning like at-home cocktails? What are people doing?
So what's really fascinating is that, you know, you're seeing two things happen at once, right? So you're seeing us go into social distancing and also enter a recession. And so you're seeing both of those ideas play out through what people are consuming. So yeah, spirits are booming. Spirits always boom during a recession. It's like the number one thing that people go to because it's bang for buck, right? So it's like, but what you're seeing happen in tandem is like in previous, that's exactly right.
Large resin.
Speaking of bang for buck, there's a 9.1% in a 16-ounce can.
Yeah. You're also seeing something that we haven't seen in the past, which is, yes, people going into spirits, but people also getting really interested in cocktails and making cocktails at home. And so like we saw in the I think it was really interesting. So in the beginning of this, in terms of our content, we saw people sort of just consuming what's the best vodka, what's the best, you know, like, and probably people were taking like vodka and orange juice and being like, how do I just like get through the shock of what's happening in the first 2 to 3 weeks? And then what wound up happening, which is really fascinating, is you saw the momentum shift to people looking and searching on like, how do I make a Negroni? How do I make a classic daiquiri? How do I make a margarita? I mean, last week alone, we did 1.5 million, you know, impressions to 2 margarita recipes.
So it's the next sourdough. Margarita is the next sourdough.
I think cocktails in general, right? Because it's something that you can do and you can be creative and you can try to, and people are trying to bring back in what they're missing, right? And so one of the things people are missing is that, you know, cocktail bar experience. And so being able to make those cocktails at home is what they're looking for. I think, you know, you're also seeing obviously beer and wine in terms of interest continue to rise. The only thing that is a bummer, like the one thing that I miss in the recession, not the recession yet, in the quarantine more than anything else is draft beer, right? And that's the one thing that like you can't get, right? Like I can actually, I've realized through the last 2 months of being home that I can make a pretty good cocktail now. Like I've worked at it, like I understand the ingredients that go into it. I understand, you know, how to make some of my favorite things and recreate things I've had. I can't recreate draft beer and I don't have a draft system.
Right.
I do think for me and for a lot of other people, that will be one of the things that people run to first, because that's the one thing we haven't been able to take home for us. We can have great beer in cans, et cetera, but it's just not the same.
I had this really incredible Saturday not too long ago where I went to a bar that has a nice little walk-up window high dive in Park Slope and got a Sweet Action growler, 64 ounces, and it was just phenomenal to sit there and drink this draft beer out of a 20-ounce pint glass, and it was gone very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it had to have been. I haven't seen that yet. I've walked around a bunch in Fort Greene, but I haven't seen anyone selling draft to go yet.
I've seen a lot of draft to go, and I've seen on nice days people just posted up on the sidewalk drinking in groups of people together with their masks off, you know, turning the New York City sidewalks into a bar.
I mean, yeah, it's funny. So I just moved to Brooklyn. I lived in the East Village for a long time, and so we're still a member of like that next door neighborhood, like blog or whatever in the East Village, and there was like people complaining about, I guess, a few of the well-known bars in the East Village. Basically, their sidewalks have just turned into the bar on the weekends because they're selling to go, and people are like, well, I like this bar, so why am I going to buy to go, walk down the block and drink? I'm just going to stand at the at the apartment building next door, drink the drink, come back and buy another to go. I'm talking about
straw. So as far as So actually, I want to say that we're going to play a few games throughout this. We'll start the first game pretty soon. You were talking about spirits, and I haven't thought through the rules to the spirits game. So when we get there, or the cocktail game, we're just going to wing it. We'll see if we have any viewers left at that point. If they're going to be missing the real good stuff. But so what trends are you seeing in the data for beer right now, leading up to this and after this? Like, is there anything that we're not seeing yet that you might be seeing?
I mean, I think you continue to see the players continue to do really well in terms of the categories, right? So IPA is still massive. It's still the most popular by far in terms of what consumers are looking for. I mean, I think the thing that just continues to blow us away, and we categorize it as beer, is hard seltzer. It's just like, it is up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of percentage points in terms of reader interest, literally month over month. And it sees no signs of slowing down. And the other thing that's really interesting in beer that we're seeing right now that is happening earlier, and this is actually across the board, wine, beer, and spirits, is you saw people moving towards summer style beverages much earlier. So in March, we saw lighter pilsners, lagers, et cetera, already gain interest in terms of what people were reading about. And that's just continuing. And I think it's this, if you think about psychology, right, it's this deep down, like, I just want to be somewhere else, man. And the thing that I remember, the thing that takes me more somewhere else than anything else is being on vacation. Yeah. So when I drink on vacation, I drink really crisp pilsners and like awesome lagers and light beers when I sit on the beach. And that's what people are looking for, because they just got to get out of thinking that they're only in their house. So if that means that they go in the backyard or they go to the park and that's what they drink, that's what they're looking for. I think that's also explaining the rise of seltzer's interest as well, because people are just looking for these crisper, refreshing drinks that make them feel like they're not quarantining.
I filled my bathroom with sand, so you go in there and it's like...
No, you didn't.
So what is it that people are actually reading about seltzer? Like what is it that they're specifically interested in that you're reporting?
I mean, so they're really interested in like how it's become so crazy. They're interested in the stories behind some of these brands. They're also interested in literally the ratings and our reviews of them. So we're the only, like, we went in, we pretty much like committed really early on that we were going to be a publication that actually took them seriously and review them and tell people which producers we think are good and which producers we think are not so good. Because people really care, and there's so much on the market. Like, it's one of these things that it's like seltzer is like what happened with rosé 8 or 9 years ago on the wine side, right? People are like, oh my God, this is an exploding category. I can make something pink. And if you can make something pink doesn't mean that it tastes good. But like the market flooded, right? And so you're seeing that as well on the seltzer side. But like everyone's like, oh, I can make that too. But the problem is that there are really good ones, and then there are really awful ones. And so,
have you had to taste or made your staff taste?
Oh, we tasted tons of stuff, and some of it's delicious, and some of it's not. And like I don't want to name the not ones because that's not nice, but like the delicious ones are really good.
Nice.
So I don't know, and I do think too with seltzer, the other trend we're seeing is I think you're going to start seeing a desire by consumers to care about how it's actually made. Like I think, like, how do you brew it? Like, is it natural ingredients? Is it synthetic? Like, is it spirits based, or is it brewed, or is it wine based? Like, people are gonna start asking those questions as the category just keeps getting bigger, 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 and everyone's calling it the same thing.
Just while we're talking about seltzer for 1 second, one of the questions that I get a lot, and I actually got this question yesterday from a class I was teaching, was whether seltzer is like really hurting craft beer or how it's taking a bite out of that segment. And from what I've seen, I know the numbers I've seen anyway, have shown that it's hurting the macro beer category more than it's hurting the craft beer category. Your Bud Light, your Miller Lite, your Coors Light drinkers switching over to seltzer more so than your resin drinkers switching over to seltzer. But I also know that I have really good friends who are craft beer fans who will go out and buy a 12-pack of seltzer. So what do you think about that? What do you see?
So it's hurting macro, yeah, but it's also hurting wine. So it's like, it's not hurting, again, premium wine with dinner, et cetera, but like it's hurting like that cheap and cheerful Prosecco, et cetera, like, because it's kind of similar, right? It's, if you drink a spritz, if you drink an Aperol spritz, that's sparkling wine, Aperol, and sparkling water.
Mhm.
That's pretty much a seltzer.
Right.
Carbonated beverage. And yeah, it is interesting to see the amount of people who were Bud Light drinkers that have now become Bud Light seltzer drinkers, right? Which is interesting. And I actually think there's an opportunity for, I mean, that's why you see so many craft brands jumping in as well, is because they think they can grab more people, right? So bring in other drinkers to the brand and then maybe also bring them into the craft side. I think the one thing that all of seltzer is showing though too is that there has become this growing health halo in the world of alcohol. So this idea of like lower alcohol, lower calorie, et cetera, like Trail Haze is a good example. Yeah. And people looking for that. And I think you will see that in craft beer too. This summer is going to be really weird for that because I think we probably would have seen that explode more than just in terms of other brands and seltzer, just because like we're all now quarantining. So we're not all going to be at the beach, like running and surfing and then hitting a beer. But I think it's coming. Like people care about that stuff. You look at how crazy Peloton has done in the last few months in terms of like their stock price and their user acquisition and all this crazy stuff. There's still just the same amount of people who are interested in exercise and fitness who are going to be calorie conscious. And whether they're a craft beer drinker or a seltzer drinker are going to look for that messaging on the can or on the bottle.
Speaking of Peloton, I doubt they're watching, but there's a few of them that I know are craft beer fans, and some who are Sixpoint fans specifically. So they endorse Sixpoint.
Well, you're a Peloton person too, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got one. So I also just while we were doing that, I cracked the resin because, and if I had music, I'd play it. But we've got our first game.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
So this is beer edition of all of our favorite game. We are going to call it Fridge Stalker Happy Hour Down the Drain. And I want everyone at home to play along. First, and both Max and Adam answer this. We've got Pilsner, Brown Ale, Hazy IPA. Which one is the happy hour? Which one's the Fridge Stalker? What goes down the drain?
I like all these, man.
For me, the Fridge Stalker is going to be the Pilsner. I might have changed that answer before quarantine, but these days I find myself reaching for those like easy drinkers more so than ever, like you were talking about, Adam. So that's the easy part for me. Fridge Stalker, Pilsner.
I feel like for me, I mean, if Kat on my team is watching, she's going to think that I am going to say Hazy IPA. And so maybe I'll just be predictable and tell her that it's Hazy IPA for the Fridge Stalker. But I go between that and the Pilsner. But I like Brown Ale. But man, like if I have to choose, it's going down the drain. Like if you're making
That's a tough one.
I'm with you on this. I really like Brown Ale as well. It would be a good happy hour choice. It's a coin toss for me between the happy hour for Brown Ale or Hazy IPA.
You know what? I'm going to go Pilsner for happy hour because like with Hazy IPA, they're usually a little higher in alcohol. Happy hour, sometimes you're like mingling or getting to know people. You don't want to say something you don't mean to say. I'm going to go Pilsner with the happy hour, Hazy IPA, Fridge Stalker, Brown Ale, down the drain.
Yeah. So my answer is actually, I was about to give an answer of Pilsner as the Fridge Stalker, Hazy IPA as the happy hour, and Brown Ale just unfortunately down the drain. But I'm going to go based on what's actually in my fridge. So it's Hazy IPA is the Fridge Stalker, Brown Ale is the happy hour because I have a few of those in my fridge. Thank you, Strong Rope. And then I'm going to have to put Pilsner down the drain. It's my favorite, but I have none.
That hurts my heart.
I have none in the fridge. What can I say? All right, next one up. West Coast IPA, Session IPA, or Dunkel?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to say West Coast IPA is my Fridge Stalker. Session IPA is down the drain. And Dunkel is my happy hour. Just going to get a little loose.
I'm going to agree 100% there. Yeah. Session IPA for me is an easy down the drain out of those three categories. I really like Dunkels and I really like West Coast IPAs. But I think I would want to drink more IPAs at home in this time when we want some high alcohol options.
I'm drinking the elusive 16-ounce resin, so I'll say the same as you guys. Also, anyone at home who's watching and wants to play, we want to hear it in the comments. Next up, Grisette Hazy Double IPA, throwing a little curveball in there, and Hellas.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to say Hazy Double IPA is down the drain. Hellas is the fridge stalker, and Grisette is my happy hour.
Spot on. I'm right there.
Yeah, it's like we got some telepathy going on over here because that's exactly what I was going to say. I could even fridge stock the Grisette, but you don't see a whole lot of those in variety out there. So
Yeah.
I would fridge stock the Hellas, happy hour the Grisette, down the drain with the Hazy Dippa.
All right. Next up, we got Schwarzbier Dunkel Marzen.
This one's a little trickier for me. I think I would fridge stock the Schwarzbier because it's probably, even though the color is deceptive, it's probably the most refreshing out of those options.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I think
What's that?
I think that's correct. I feel the same.
I think I would happy hour the Dunkel and down the drain with the Marzen, but those are also coin flip for me. I love both of those styles, especially when they're really well done.
And then
I'm
with you.
Marzen, but it's a toss up.
Marzen, I'll do once a year.
Just
And then the rest of the year it's down the drain, you know. All right. So last one. This one's the really tough one. Triple IPA, double IPA with lactose and vanilla, or sour IPA with blood orange and vanilla.
Can I dump them all down the drain?
I've had examples of all of those that I really like, but I don't want to stock the fridge with any of them.
Whoa.
On a good day, all three of those are happy hour options, and on a bad day, they're all drain options.
On a good day, if they're happy hour options, though, too, they're like drunk hour options.
Yeah.
Like, these are like,
I'll take all in a 4-ounce pour.
Yeah.
Sure. It's not a beer you want to drink 16 ounces of at a time, which is what I think of for happy hour.
We just made up this game, so now there's new rules. You can drink them one day a year or in 4-ounce glasses. All options, unlisted.
Okay.
All right.
Some good questions coming in, or good categories from the chat there too.
You wanna name a few?
All right. So Twig is asking Marzen, Schwartz, Dunkel. Oh, that was his choices. Johnny Osborne is saying, Johnny Osborne, shout out to him. He used to brew for us at Sixpoint. He's over at Talea, also in Brooklyn now. He says his happy hour would be the Schwarzbier, the Marzen in the fridge, and then drain the Dunkel.
Come on, Johnny.
Marzen in the fridge? Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Some good ones there.
We also got a comment that Chris is drinking Aperol and Crisp right now.
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds good.
It's the Aperol Crisp. What do you think of that?
I've never tried that combo. I do like an Aperol Spritz. That whole family of liquors, and I love Campari. I'll have to try adding some Aperol to my Crisp.
Ratio.
So I have some Crisp. I have Campari. I'm willing to take one for the team and try it. I'll go get it right now.
All right.
We'll hold down the chat until you get back with the Campari and the Crisp.
There is this like whole thing that people have been doing it with Miller High Life. So you drink 2 ounces out of the High Life and then dump either Campari or Aperol Spritz. I'll be back.
All right. Great. I like the live action cocktail making.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right? On the fly.
Thank you, Chris, for the inspiration. For those of you who are still with us while Adam is going to make his cocktail, we have 1.5 more games coming up. One of them's a short game. One of them we haven't finished the rules to. So maybe you can help us come up with the rules, but you're going to have to help us name some cocktails we come up with on the fly. So this being the first one, the Aperol Crisp, maybe you can help us name it something better.
Yeah, seriously. So we have 2 choices. So we have Campari, like traditional but more bitter. And then we have this Contratto bitter, which is like the hipster Aperol, basically. So the Campari is going to have 30% alcohol, 24%. This has 22. What do you guys think? Should I go with like the lighter or the Campari?
I would do the Campari. Let's stay true to Chris's inspiration here. He's given us on the spot cocktail ideas. A nice solid blue can there. Must be fresh.
Oh, you're going to go with the High Life method where you just pour the Campari straight into the can?
I'm going. So
I like it.
All this.
And Adam, while you're eyeballing that, I am going to say, in your defense, in defense of your palate, I've never met a professional brewer that doesn't love Miller High Life. So and I fall in that. I'm not a professional brewer, but I also love High Life. So you're in good company there. High Life is like the macro lager of professional brewers.
Yeah, it's true. We go out to a bar after work that serves Sixpoint and buy them out of High Life. And a few crisp.
Okay. So I think I did about 1.5 ounces of Campari into a crisp. So usually I think you would like, now the other move I heard is you should squeeze some lemon in here, but I haven't done that. That's delicious.
Wow, Chris, you got it.
Oh man, I guess I stock Campari, but I don't go through it very fast at home. I guess that's about to change.
Holy crap.
Are you going to write about this tomorrow?
I want to. This is really good. The only thing I might try is adding a little lemon, but then I have to get out the cutting board and whatever. So let's not do that now.
We'll give you another question in the meantime. So I actually want to go back to some of the reporting that you guys have done. You were talking about the accessibility of content and writing content that you're really interested in, but you've also done some really deep reporting. So I want to know just on the site as a whole, what are some of like the most interesting or biggest stories you guys have broken about the beer industry?
Oh, wow. About the beer industry? God. There's been a ton. We wrote an amazing article on line culture a long time ago that I thought was really interesting. We sort of examined what actually is going on there and the fact that a lot of these breweries actually don't have scarcity. It's more to drive up this idea of demand and then to create this, marketplace. Obviously, really interesting to see what happens to line culture and social distancing and where that will go and like where obviously we know now trading is happening.
There's an app for that.
Gotcha. So that's a really interesting one. We've talked a lot about just brewers in general and how they're innovating. So, what styles have been really pervasive and why, and trying to look at why the New England IPA, for example, has become such a massive beer so quickly. Same in terms of the world of seltzer. Gosh, there's like so much stuff. It's hard to remember like specific stories over and over and over again. One of the stories we wrote recently that's not about beer specifically, but I think is really amazing is looking at how like the Spanish flu was sort of instrumental in bringing on the Roaring 20s, and the Roaring 20s brought on this really huge revitalization of culture and of the drinks world, and predicting whether or not that's going to happen now after we move out of Corona in the world of drinks.
Will happen. What do you think it'll look like?
I think it's to be interesting. So I think that there's 5,600 craft breweries in the country now, right? Something like that.
I think it's closer to 8,000.
Yeah, over. I think we've crossed 8,000 now.
Wow. Yeah. So at least 2,000 are going to go out of business.
Yeah,
but for sure. Depending on who you talk to, as a journalist, like we take everyone's opinion. Some people will tell you that's a really good thing. Some people will tell you that's a huge bummer. But there will be a lot of loss. But I think that will make a lot of the other breweries innovate, because I think we're going to see that that's the only way to retain consumers is being really honest with them in terms of how you build a community and getting them into the brand, and then talking to them all the time. I think actually what we're having to do now with being digital and one-on-one delivery, et cetera, is actually really good for the world of beer. And then I think it's going to push a lot of brewers to try new things because they're going to have to stand out. And that could be awesome, right? Like, I don't know if we've always needed like the copycats for so long, right? So how many like New England IPAs do we need that taste pretty identical from brewery to brewery but before that, how many West Coast IPAs did we need that tasted pretty identical from brewery to brewery? Like, the whole idea is trying to create something that makes you stand out. And I think you will see that once we reopen. It'll be really interesting though, because as I said, like a lot of breweries that we know and love will not be here when it's all over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard to tell really too, especially with just how they're being supported by the government and seeing what delivery and whether it's UPS or direct delivery at home evolves into, whether that becomes a main channel that people rely on as well.
Yeah, and I think
that's here to stay.
If people become, huge fans of a brewery, they may be more willing to try new things from that brewery as opposed to saying, okay, well, like I'm really into New England IPA, so therefore let me drink all the New England IPAs from 30 new breweries. They might say like, look, I really dig the stuff that this brewery puts out, and they have a really great customer relationship experience. They deliver really fast. They have really fair pricing, et cetera. Like they put out this new beer, I'm much more likely to take that beer in from them and try their new offering than go somewhere else to try something that I may or may not like. Like people are gonna be a lot more risk averse.
Yeah. So just going into what we're seeing, or what your feelings are about certain things you're seeing right now. What are your favorite and least favorite trends in beer happening right now?
Ooh. Okay. So I think they kind of go hand. So my least favorite trend is the same least favorite trend I have in all alcohol, and that's the cool kid vibe. Like I hate the cool kid thing. Like this idea that like we just think we're better than you, and we kind of we don't have to talk to our consumers. We can talk in a way to them in which we're talking down to them. Like I hate that trend in beer, and that actually is a very recent trend in beer to me. Like that's not what craft beer was. Like that's not how I fell in love with beer. That's not how craft beer became this category that exploded. Right? It exploded because it was all welcoming. And everyone felt like they could ask stupid questions and that they could, get involved, like they could talk to brewers and brewers would just like walk them through the process and whatever. And like in the last 5 years, pushed by some cool kid breweries, there became this like elitist idea that like, if you don't understand this, then you just don't get it. Or if you ask this question, then you just don't know beer. And that's a bummer to me because like, that's where wine went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how certain whiskeys became too intimidating to people. So I hate that trend. And then positive trend in beer, I think it is the brewers that are trying to make really cool stuff at fair prices. And I actually love what Corona's doing. I love this, like the trend of breweries delivering on demand, and like that it's not coming a lot of times through like an app service like Caviar, et cetera. It's coming from the brewery. So it's like a brewery employee that's coming and delivering you beer and like having a conversation with you, albeit at a social distance. But like, I think it's causing a lot of breweries to rethink how they connect with their audience. Like stuff like you guys are doing right now. I think that is really awesome and is helping craft beer get back to what made it awesome in the first place. It was like remembering that the community is what built craft beer. And so continuing to reflect back on the community and talk back to the community is really important.
Great. I'm gonna ask more favorites. I'm not gonna ask any more least favorites. I want to know favorite Sixpoint beer. Doesn't have to be one that we currently make, just in general.
Oh, so I brought it. So my experiment was good, but I'm gonna move it over to the side. It's a little much. I got it. Currently it's Hootie.
Awesome. All right.
I think Hootie is awesome.
You've had several iterations of that one too, I think.
I remember when I had the first one. I mean, an awesome beer. And I would say favorite retro Sixpoint beer is Sweet Action. I mean, when I moved to New York City, there were not that many craft breweries. And like I said, I'd come from this background where I had connected with this brewery in Atlanta that I felt really loyal to. And I came to New York, and like New York basically had Brooklyn. And Brooklyn felt like this huge company actually to me. And Sixpoint was at that point, it had been around for a few years, but it still felt like an upstart. And so it was really cool to go to some of these places. Like I remember going to Cafe Habana in Fort Greene and drinking Sixpoint Sweet Action on draft. And like, that was just like an awesome experience. So that would definitely be my like historical Sixpoint beer.
Very cool. Yeah. At that point we had poetry on the cans. That was a different time.
Yeah, I think, Everyone thought you guys were crazy when you came out with this size can.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Chris at home, who's watching this, one of these days, he's got one of the original Sweet Action cans, and we're gonna have him drink it, just for fun, just for kicks. It's like 7 years old. All right. So, what is your favorite non-6 point beer you've had recently? I'm gonna give you a chance to talk about, because you get so many sent to you and stuff like that. Something that you really enjoyed or thought was interesting, or unique that was not our brand.
Breeze Wandering Vines.
Okay. Cool.
That was a quick answer too.
Yeah.
Awesome beer. Like, I think that they brew really awesome. They're a really talented brewery in the city, and Wandering Vines is a delicious beer.
Awesome. Very cool. Let me see what else we've got for you here. So I want to ask you a spirits question, and then I think we'll probably close out or take any questions from anyone if there are any. So if there are, we'll get them fed to us pretty soon, and if not, we'll end there. But I'm sure you've probably seen on your site a lot of people who are not just drinking beer. I don't know if anyone who's watching is only a beer drinker. So in the spirits world, tell us about some of your favorite things that you've tried recently, what you really like, and maybe something that you think the people watching who are beer fans would enjoy.
Okay. So in terms of the spirits world, I've got into either cocktails. So basically making a lot of things that are like iterations on Negronis and stuff like that. Or I've gotten back into both bourbon straight and tequila straight. And on the tequila, and then I do really like a Tommy's margarita. Pretty delicious margarita that our editor-in-chief, Erica, reintroduced me to, that I was just like, wow, this margarita is actually really awesome. Why have we ever put Cointreau Grand Marnier in a margarita? Like, all a margarita needs is lime juice, agave syrup, and tequila. Like, this is the best margarita ever. So really into that. But I would say on the spirit side with tequila, I still really like Don Julio. I also have been into this brand Azunia that makes really interesting stuff, and Codigo. Those are like 3 brands that I enjoy for drinking tequila straight. And then on the bourbon side, I've had a bottle of Jefferson's recently that I really liked. So they sort of came up around the same time as Pappy, and same idea, right? Like, it's a guy buying barrels from producers and then finishing them. But so he finishes them in crazy casks. He'll finish them in wine casks and ex-rum casks, etc. And then he does some that he ages at sea, and those are pretty amazing. And then I think, like, for the money, Elijah Craig, like, single barrel is like one of the best bang for your buck bourbons on the market. And so that I've been drinking too. But that's like you have like 1 or 2 of those, and then you like go to bed. It's like a high alcohol glass of bourbon. But like, again, in the quarantine, I'm drinking more, I think, beer and wine than I am spirits, unless it's in a cocktail, just because, like, I want to still cook and hang out and do things and not just go to bed.
Yeah, I've been drinking a lot of beer and sake. Canned sakes are one of my favorite things when I'm not drinking beer. Max, what about you? What is a beer expert drink when he's not drinking beer?
So in general, I'm a really big wine fan. I was actually like a really big fan of wine, and almost the opposite of Adam. I was sort of like a wine geek before I was a beer geek. It's almost a wonder I didn't end up in the wine world professionally. But these days, I've been doing a lot of the same stuff Adam has too. Straight bourbon. Actually, I've got a bottle of bourbon right on my desk for those Friday night happy hours with our brewers. The guys being dudes, Friday night happy hour. It's generally like some combination of Pilsner and bourbon. So since you said not beer,
Together
not combined. No, like have a Pilsner, have a bourbon on the side, or go back and forth between the two. Still drinking a little bit of wine, but usually when I do wine, it's more like with dinner and with friends and with occasions. And right now we don't have as many occasions, so my wine cellar is staying fairly untouched right now.
So we're running low on time, so I'm not going to do the whole beer cocktail game that I was going to make up on the spot, and it may or may not have been a disaster, but I am going to play one more game.
No game. It's because you were going to make it up on the spot, therefore it never existed.
Right, it never existed. So We're just gonna do really quick. We went through the nice game about which styles we like and which we dump down the drain. But now we're just gonna do desert island beer style. We're not gonna talk about specific beers because I don't want to confine you to Sixpoint, and I don't want you to mention all the other ones. But here is your desert island. That's how much space you have on that little island there. It is, I think, a Windows 95 graphic that I found here. And the only thing you get on the island is beer, and it's all of the beers made in that style, kept cool by the waters around it. So what is your desert island beer style?
I mean,
Go ahead, Adam. I'll let you answer first.
I mean, if it's a desert island, it's a Pilsner.
So the question I was going to ask was, you said the only thing we get on the island is beer, no food? No.
It's just you're surrounded by beer. It's all beers made of that style.
But that's it. There's no food.
No.
If there's no food, then I have to, on a technicality, say Doppelbock, because I know that monks could survive for, all of Lent on Doppelbock. So I would be inclined to get a little bit more protein and nutrition. But if assuming I get like the occasional sandwich as well, or some sort of meal.
This island is pretty close to land, just to be clear.
If I don't have to last a month on beer alone, my true choice would be a Dortmunder style, which is a German lager close to a Helles, but slightly more interesting in a few ways. Also a pretty obscure style. So if it had to be something I could find at the bodega, I would go with the Helles and just give me all the Alpenflow.
So mine is a Pilsner as well. I think that was the style that got me into beer. That's the style that is not in my fridge, but the one I wish I had the most right now. But so I've finished the Cosmic Handshake. I've finished the resin, and it's been 48 minutes, and I haven't said anything stupid yet, as far as I know. So thank you both for your time. I really appreciate it. This has been really fun. And I hope everyone who's watching at home has enjoyed it as well. Just for next week, don't forget to tune into Taproom Live Thursday at 6 p.m. Same time, featuring the Bold Rock brand manager, Lindsay, crafting some of their favorite bold rock tails. So these are cocktails with cider, similar to the cocktails with beer that we were talking about. That is gonna, and one of them is part of their new summer seasonal program, the Bold Rock Pineapple, which sounds amazing.
I can't wait to get some samples of that because I'm itching to try it. Everything I've heard has been fantastic.
Me too. Maybe he'll mail us some. We don't get it here. Thank you all.
Adam, it was really great talking to you. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
And thank you to everyone at home who's tuned in tonight and offered up some comments and suggestions and playing along with the games in the chat, because that was fun.
That was fun.